we're going to do a little workshop. My thinking was that you guys would get active on your laptops after I've shown off a little bit. If you don't want to, we don't have to. But I'll show you some slides, and then you can get your hands dirty if you want to. So I did a similar workshop at Eat Berlin, where we had Amin, for instance, in the audience, which found it very useful. He did some analysis on Moloch DAO stuff. So that's just to say that during a workshop like this, you could find useful information if you're eager enough. So basically, what we do, the tooling that I'm showing here, is decoded smart contract data, then querying interface on top of that data. We have a tool for visualizing the information, and then you can share the visualizations you're doing or look into others' analysis. So I'm going to show you some examples of what can be made. We're going to look a little bit at the data, and then I'm going to do some live query, and then it's your turn if you want to. So here are a few examples of what can be made with this interface on top of the data. So just here's an example of some high-level information of DAI. So you have the number of addresses that sent DAI, which is 160,000. You have the number of receivers, which is 240,000. You can see how this, how many senders there are per month, which obviously is rising quite nicely here. Users that minted DAI from a CDP, for instance. So this is one example. Another one we did for Gnosis here is, let's see if this one, refresh a little better. Here we have volume for the Dutch exchange, broken down per token. So it's a bit of a heavy dashboard, but here you see before they did their DAO launch, it was about $1 million USD per day, mostly here in, let's see, there's a lot of tokens, but it's DAI, and then GNO, I think, are the main ones that people traded. Now it's not that active anymore. And we have various metrics on like what are smart contracts, what are externally owned accounts, things like that.
So sorry, the first one is the Dutch exchange?
Yeah. Yeah.
So after they did the DAO, no one traded?
Yeah, it's pretty non-active right now. I think there were some market makers around here as well, which there's not anymore. So yeah, they just commented on it in the last session. They had a talk, and they mentioned that it's mostly right now the main use case is for people that want to sell off like a large batch of tokens, and that might not be like the case for that many projects right now. And they've also transitioned it into a DAO ownership, so Gnosis are not maintaining it anymore. So who knows? But yeah, so that's one example. Another example, if you want to get like into the details, here's a chart on 0x retention. So if you've done like product management, this would be familiar, but I can break it down. So here you look at how many users came in at a given week. So for this week, 8th of July, there were 81 users. Then the week after that, how many of those that came in that week came back, and then the week after that, and so forth. So what you see here is that actually 0x seems to have a pretty decent user retention. So here we have like all the way 6-7 weeks after they got in the first time, they're still using it. So this is obviously like quite in detail, but it just shows you the level of depth you can get to if you want to. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the data structure here. So in this interface, you will find this format where you can see a project, you can see the contract name of that project, and then the specific event from that contract. So to take an example, you can have Uniswap, exchange, contract, throwing event, token purchase. And then we have USD prices that you can use to get USD volumes. And then also, obviously, the raw Ethereum blockchain. So if that makes somewhat sense, I'm going to do a query. So sort of before I continue, how many of you guys are familiar with SQL? Okay, so half-ish. Okay, then let's see. If we do here, go into this interface, which you can go to at duneanalytics.com. You can do a query. So here we find the data in the structure I just mentioned. So let's look at eat to die, which is the Oasis DEX. So if we look at the data here, we can find, can you see this? Maybe not, yeah. Can you see this stuff? No? Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Is this better? Yeah, so I search for eat to die, which is a DEX. So here we, for instance, find the event log trade. So log trade. So if we want to look at this data now, we will select everything from log trade and say we want 10 results here. And then you get the data like this. So what eat to die allows is trading eat to die. So here you will see the amount that the user paid and which token address it was. So this is like the payment token. So this is the address for DAI, and this is the address for Ether or wrapped Ether. So right now, if we take the DAI address, for instance, and we want to figure out how much DAI was sold. So when you use DAI to pay, you're basically selling DAI. So then we sum the amount of DAI and remove all the zeros, and then we say we want this to be where where the address is. This is then the DAI address. So just need to format it like this, and then if you run this, we figure out that 168 million DAI has been sold on the Oasis DEX or eat to die DEX. So that's just like an all over volume. And if we go back to looking at the data here, we see that we also find the buying amount. So here we see, okay, how much DAI was paid, and then we can see how much ETH was bought. So then we can figure out the price of these trades. So now we can go for a given transaction. We want to figure out the payment amount and divide it by the buy amount, which is then ETH. And then we want to take the cases where we sell, where the payment token is DAI. And then we group this by transaction. So we're checking this for each transaction. And let's do like this. And we want 10 of this. By amount. So now we can see a transaction, and we see what price they got on their DAI ETH trade. So this is not extremely useful as is, but basically we're detecting the price of the transaction with the on-chain data here. And then you can aggregate that. So let's say we want to do this over time. So then we can join in with the Ethereum transactions to find the time component. So these trades don't have like time in them, but you find it via the transaction. So if we now call this thing trade, and we join with the Ethereum transactions on, let's call it DX. So so we say that we want the trade hash to be equal to the transaction hash. Like this, and then instead of grouping it by the transaction hash here, we want the day. So we take, say we want day from the transaction block time. So now we have selected the time from the transactions table, and we've taken the average clearing price that we observed. And let's now, instead of, let's do this for the last 5 days, for instance. So let's say that block time date, that is, this is just saying trailing last 5 days. So like this. So now we are getting the price, the average price. So let's call this price, and we call this time. And this is the last 5 days from this exchange. We will find the price per day. So here we see a table with the ETH price on this exchange the last 5 days, and then we can visualize that. So say we want to turn this into a graph, and say we want to do a line, and we want time to be the x-axis and price to be the y-axis. Whoop. You can see this little thing. So here we have these different points. It looks a little weird when I'm so zoomed in, but we have a price graph over time. And now we can then go even further and say, okay, so what was the centralized exchange price for this time? So then there's another table. We now have transactions. Let's say we want to join in with prices. So there's a table called CoinCap. It's tokens. So we can find this here as well. CoinCap tokens USD. Let's call this P, and we want. Now we will match this on time because there's no transaction hash for the on-chain. No, the off-chain prices, obviously. So we say we want the minute of the price to be equal to the minute of the the blockchain time for the trade, and then we want the price to be. So this is the pay table P, and we want the symbol to be wet because we want to look at ETH price. And then we pick that up as well. So we say the average price from a centralized exchange call it like that for centralized exchange. And if I'm not mistaken, this should kind of work. So we're now bringing in off-chain information as well, and we're putting it together with the on-chain data whenever the minute is the same. So let's see. So now we have the on-chain prices, but also the centralized exchange prices. So if we go back to our visualization, maybe I can zoom out a little bit. Yeah, like this. You can change this and also add in the centralized exchange price, and we can see the difference. So that's one thing you can do, and then you could, for instance, now, I'm not going to do that right now, but you could also multiply by the DAI price here, and then this gap would be a little tighter. So if you multiply because this is DAI and the other one is like regular dollars. So if you multiply this thing, the on-chain trading, with the DAI price, then this would actually be pretty tight in this case. So this is one simple example of what you can do when you work with the on-chain data and match it with the off-chain stuff. So I don't know how many of you are interested in trying your hands on this right now, or I mean, that was my plan, but if you don't want to, then I guess there's no need. So are you guys interested in like giving it a go, or do you want to just call it? Yeah, you don't have a laptop. I mean, whatever you guys want. Are you?
If I'm the only one.
We can.
Yeah, if you're, yeah. So I had a little task here, but yeah, thanks. Where you could try to find the total amount of DAI bought on Uniswap. So if you go to duneanalytics.com, you can get a user, and sort of in a similar fashion than with.
We need to create an account, right?
Yeah, you do, but it's free and you can do it in like a minute. But I don't know if if I don't want to force it on you. Or let's put it another way. Are there any questions? Or
Yes.
yeah?
Do you pass the microphone?
Oh yeah. Okay. Is this thing on? Yeah.
How do you populate the database?
We run full archive Ethereum nodes and put it into the database.
And how real time is it? Like how often does it get updated?
A couple of minutes behind the
Minutes behind?
head. Yeah. Yeah.
You use like S3 or something as a backup?
So yeah, this is.
Oh,
Oh, I think you need to put it.
So, hey, yeah, so in terms of your database, where do you store the Ethereum data?
So it's a Postgres database on Google Cloud.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. Yeah, I don't really have that much more to present per se. I'm happy to sort of the few of you that's interested in getting hands-on. I'm happy to just answer questions, but I don't think I need to do anything more up on the screen.
Do we need to create a query or dashboard?
You can do just a query.
So what is it?
What?
I'm just trying to figure out which table we need to query.
Yeah, so you will be looking at the
DAI Uniswap?
Uniswap exchange contract.
Is there any support materials on Dune Analytics? So if I wanted to go back home and get my laptop?
Yeah. So there's basically there's some example queries when you sign up, and we have some documentation as well on our website. So yeah.
So is it the Uniswap that exchange event transfer?
It's event token bought, I think we're looking for.
Token purchase?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think we have to need to do any more recording.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to like wrap it up saying thank you very much and everyone clap? Just so I've got it for the...
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.